Shalom. Thank you for that warm introduction, Ambassador Lauder. I'm not used to it coming from the UN. I want to thank the World Jewish Congress for inviting me. I want to thank Ambassador Haley. She had to go back to the Security Council, but she is doing a great job, and we appreciate her energy and her new approach. We feel the change in the UN. It's great to see all of you here this afternoon. I want to thank my dear friend, Ambassador Lauder. Congratulations for your elections. When I enter a room full of delegates from all over the world, usually in the UN, it's bad news for me. But today, I know that's not the case. Only if every one of you were to represent your home country at the UN, can you imagine? My job would be a lot easier. But in all seriousness, this is truly incredible. Over 100 countries represented with pro-Israel Jewish advocates from every corner of the world here at the World Jewish Congress. Your presence, your individual contributions further the shared mission, protecting the Jewish people and the state of Israel. World Jewish Congress and the UN, if you know the history, were actually founded with a similar mission after the Holocaust. They were both established with the hope of combating hatred and preventing terrible atrocities from ever occurring again. Today, it seems that all too often, the UN, the United Nations, has not succeeded in achieving this founding goal. The World Jewish Congress, however, is still guided by the phrase, Kol Israel Arevim Ze Laze. All Jews are responsible for one another. Every day, you advocate for our people. You utilize your resources to foster dialogue and bridge gaps so that we can all pursue the common goals of our people and our nation. Today, wherever there is anti-Semitism, the World Jewish Congress is there as a powerful, unrelenting advocate for our people. When I arrived at the UN almost a year ago, even though it feels like 6 years at the UN, I made it clear to my dedicated diplomats in our mission that we were entering a new era. Under my watch, we have vigorously stood up to anyone who spreads lies about Israel. And we work closely with our friends, with our American friends and others, to fight against the endless attempts to condemn Israel in almost every UN committee and agency. And what a fight it is. The focus on Israel, the obsession, it is a real obsession with Israel, never stops. Every single day, we see resolutions accusing us of everything. You can name it. Climate change, they will blame Israel. They even blame us for poisoning the Palestinians' water supply. They blame us for domestic violence in Palestinian society. And they voted, it passed. Even as Assad continues to massacre hundreds of thousands of his own citizens, even as the Iranians continue to spread hate and terror throughout the region, what does the UN focus on? Israel, of course. But let's be honest, and we should be honest. This isn't legitimate criticism of Israel. This is full-blown anti-Semitism. I know, today, it's no longer politically correct to be anti-Semitic. So the bigots and the hypocrites identify themselves as anti-Israel instead. But they don't fool us. They do everything to demonize the Jewish state, everything to promote their age-old hatred of the Jewish people. And listen to some of the accusations that I heard in the halls of the UN. A few months ago, the Palestinian representative to the UN, he compared the soldiers of the IDF to the Nazis. He said the actions of the IDF soldiers defending the people of Israel were the same as the Germans who oppressed the Warsaw Ghetto uprising. Can you believe it? Comparing the men and women of Tzva Hagana Li'Israel, of Tzahal, to the wicked Nazi criminals? Unfortunately, this is a classic example of this newest wave of anti-Semitism. And it's not limited only to the Palestinian representative. The ambassador from Venezuela, Ambassador Ramirez, I was sure he would be busy with other things. He had the chutzpah to accuse Israel of committing a final solution against the Palestinians. But we did not let it stand. We pressured him publicly and privately. We coordinated with our allies in the UN. We rallied our friends around the Jewish world and, of course, the World Jewish Congress to express their outrage. We did not give up until the ambassador called me and apologized. But do you know what I told him? I told him, Ambassador Ramirez, you don't owe me an apology. You need to apologize to all Israelis and to the entire Jewish people and do it publicly in the Security Council. And after a few days, he did. All of you at the World Jewish Congress are not strangers to this struggle. You have always stood by our side at the UN. It was the World Jewish Congress who uncovered the Nazi past of former Secretary General Kurt Waldheim in the 80s. It is the World Jewish Congress who stands by our side every time the UN issues a new biased report against Israel. Almost every week, I call Ambassador Lauder or Robert and I tell them we have to do something about it. My friends, the UN itself is certainly not immune to this sickness. I'm sure you have heard about Security Council Resolution 2334. This is a UN shameful resolution against Israel. Let's take a moment to understand this resolution, which was adopted in December. I was in the room when all the ambassadors voted for that resolution or abstained. And they were clapping after that. They were celebrating this great resolution. This resolution designates Israel's presence in the parts of Jerusalem which were liberated in 1967 as, quote, a flagrant violation under international law. Let me remind you, this includes Jerusalem's Old City and the Jewish Quarter, and it includes the Holy Western Wall, Hakotel HaMa'aravi. The UN is telling us that we cannot build in our historic capital and homeland the heart and soul of the Jewish people. Shame on them. Shame on the UN for that resolution. The sad part is that instead of charting a course forward, a dialogue, the UN is sending a counterproductive and dangerous message to the Palestinians. The UN is saying that they should continue on the path of terrorism and incitement, that they should continue to hold their own people hostage, and that they should continue to seek meaningless statements from the international community. This anti-Israel bias is not new to us. In October, UNESCO, you heard Bokova yesterday, and you heard the story about the decision that passed there. UNESCO is supposed to be in charge of education, science, culture. They adopted a resolution that denied Jerusalem's Jewish heritage. They refused to recognize the Jewish connection to Har HaBayit, to Temple Mount. Just last month, a UN agency, I'm not sure you heard about it. You say yes, you know which one? And the name of the agency? ESQA. Yeah, somebody heard about it. A UN agency, a small one, ESQA, issued a report labeling Israel an apartheid regime. Again, we immediately acted. On the same day, I met with my friend Ambassador Nikki Haley, and we both made clear that this will not stand. And you know what? The next day, Secretary General Antonio Guterres demanded that the report be withdrawn. And hours later, Rima Khalaf, the anti-Semite and BDS promoter at the head of ESQA, resigned. Good for her. Last March, another great UN agency, the UN's Human Rights Council, have you heard about them? Announced that it is creating a database, a blacklist of Israeli and international companies. They want to boycott the hardworking residents of Jerusalem, Judea and Samaria, and the Golan Heights. Ladies and gentlemen, drawing up blacklists reminds us of a very dark period in our history. But in those dark times, there was no independent state of Israel. Today, we refuse to stay silent. We refuse to sit idly by. Every day, we fight back against such resolutions. Every day, we fight against hatred and bigotry. And every day, we explain to our friends at the UN, and even to those who are not our friends, that such initiatives endanger not only Israel's security, but the possibility for real peace. And you know what? It's starting, slowly. It's starting to sink in. We are working closely with Ambassador Haley and her team, and the wind of change is blowing in from Jerusalem and from Washington. We have announced that we are cutting back on our UN pledges until serious reforms are put in place. Israel has put the UN on notice that it should be promoting hope, not hate. UN bodies cannot be used to incite and spread dangerous libels against Israel or the Jewish people. Ladies and gentlemen, as I said earlier, we don't just play defense. We go on the offensive as well. Every day, we strive to increase Israel's positive presence in the UN. And I am proud to report that we do succeed. You see, there is a big difference between what I call the public UN and the private UN. Ambassadors from many different countries, some who you wouldn't expect, and I cannot name names here, they meet me privately and express their appreciation, even admiration, for everything that Israel stands for. But then when it comes to their public statements, these same ambassadors say the most horrible things about Israel. I have made it my mission to close the gap between the public and the private UN. Last June, I had the honor of being elected to chair the legal committee. This was a historic moment. No Israeli ambassador ever sat at the head of a permanent UN committee before. And believe me, there was a great effort to stop us. The great democracies, Iran, Syria, Yemen, they laid a campaign against me and against Israel because they didn't want an Israeli sitting at the head of a committee. If it was up to them, Israel wouldn't even be part of the UN. But this time, the moral majority was with us. It took them 3 hours to count the votes. I don't know about here in the Congress when you count the votes, Sonia, how long it takes you. But it took them 3 hours, Robert, to count the votes. And then they announced that 109 countries from 6 continents voted for us. This time we defeated the anti-Israel campaign. And now every day I proudly enter the UN and preside over the committee which is tasked with fighting terrorism. We also made it clear to the UN that Yom Kippur, the most solemn day on the Jewish calendar, deserves to be treated in the same way, with the same respect as Christmas and Eid al-Fitr. And now I am proud that Yom Kippur is an official holiday at the UN. I see my Rabbi Schneier here with us. You know, Rabbi, I think a day off to repent, to do tshuva, is exactly what the UN needs. Maybe they need a week to do tshuva, not a day. You see, when the nations of the world see that we respect our religion and traditions, they understand that Israel must be taken seriously. In my first speech in the Security Council, I put on my kippah and read from Tehillim. After the meeting, an ambassador from a Muslim country approached me, and he said to me, I may not agree with much that you say. He didn't say all, he said much. But when I saw how you treated your heritage and religion, I knew that I could trust you. And I'm in touch with him until today. We have even made sure that the UN cafeterias now serve kosher food. It might not be as good as the kosher food here, but it's kosher. We all know that nothing builds a love for Israel like a visit to the Holy Land. This is why I have taken over 25 ambassadors on visits to Israel. You can call it birthright for ambassadors. These trips include a full tour of the country. It's mission impossible to show them more than 3,000 years of history within 4 days. We visit communities on the border with Gaza and then fly on helicopters to the Golan Heights and see the border with Syria. Once ambassadors see our security challenges firsthand and learn about our unique spirit, their opinion of Israel is never the same. Ambassador Suma, the ambassador of Sierra Leone, who joined me on a trip last December, was strongly influenced by this visit. Listen to what he had to say about this trip. When I walked around Israel, I saw peace and a cosmopolitan atmosphere where Christians, Jews, and Muslims live side by side in harmony. Before I came here, I thought that there was oppression in Israel. When we entered the walls of the old city of Jerusalem, I was shocked to see Arabs speak Hebrew and Jews speak Arabic. I saw coexistence. It is very exciting. For me, it's a game changer. And I can see the difference when they come back to the votes and when they come back to the meetings in the UN. For diplomats who have not yet had the pleasure of visiting Israel, we find other ways to shed insight into our reality. We hold almost weekly events at the UN demonstrating Israeli innovations and technology and displaying the beauty of our society. The World Jewish Congress is a partner with us in so many of these important events. We provide diplomats with reasons to respect and admire Israel, moving the conversation away from the anti-Semitic rhetoric of our enemies and what we hear at the UN. And you know what? It works. They want to learn from our amazing country. They want to see and to learn how we change reality, and we do educate them with facts. That is the best tool we have, is the truth. We don't stop with traditional diplomatic efforts. We found ways to utilize the grand hold of the UN to promote Israel. Just last month, we worked together with the World Jewish Congress to hold the largest anti-BDS summit ever in the UN's General Assembly Hall. The sight and sound of over 3,000 supporters of Israel singing a tikva in the UN, in the General Assembly, was a remarkable show of strength. We made clear that the days when Israel is attacked and lied about while we stand silently are over. We must continue to reach out beyond the UN, and this is where you all come in. Israel's strength comes not only from our diplomats and, of course, the brave men and women of the IDF, but from our friends around the world, committed Zionists like all of you here. All of you play a vital role in our defense. We in Israel know that we have no better friends than the World Jewish Congress. We know, yes, you deserve it. We know that you support Israel unconditionally. Ladies and gentlemen, it is because of friends like you that Israel will not be pressured to make concessions that will endanger our people. We know that you will continue to stand with us as we fight lies with the truth, and we know that we will stand together with us as we defeat those who wish to boycott the Jewish state. I know that we can rely on you to be the proud Jewish voice for Israel whenever it is needed. Together, we will stand strong against the bias and hatred at the UN. Together, we will continue to tell the truth about Israel, and together, we will prevail. תודה רבה. Thank you very much.